My name is Dustin Kelly, but everybody calls me DJ. I'm prior Army, serving as both a Ford observer and a military police officer. I've spent the last 14 and a half years as a police officer and detective in a large metropolitan police department. Two things that I've learned throughout my career. One, everybody has a story to tell. And two, the best stories are true. This is the DTD Podcast. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, and we're live. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DTD Podcast. This week in the studio, a man who served with the 10th Mountain Division in Iraq, where he received a Purple Heart for injuries that he sustained. He's also a 10-year veteran of the Louisville Police Department, serving in positions such as Patrol, the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force, and the Special Response Team. He also served briefly with the U.S. Border Patrol, but in 2020, when the absolutely horrific riots that tore apart most major cities in the United States, he decided to return to Louisville and stand shoulder to shoulder with his brothers and sisters in blue to put an end to the senseless violence and acts that were gripping America. My guest also had his fair share of heartbreak in his life. He lost his mother to suicide after recently learning of a severe depression and a life that he had no idea was happening behind closed doors. My guest battled unseen demons and at one point even lost his will to live. But like in the best redemption stories, he was pulled out of the fire by people who truly cared about him, refocused his life, priorities, and the strength to help others. He's now blazing all new trails for his family, career, podcast, and published writings. He's the author of I Am Pitts. Please welcome Dexter Pitts. What's up, my man?
What's up, my man? Thanks for having me, brother. Man, what a heck of an intro. Woo.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so there's so much to talk about. Now, we usually, when we start this, we go right into the youth. I can't do that with this book. The intro sucked me in, and we got to talk about that night because everything that I read in the book, everything that I've learned about you, that seems like the lowest day of your life. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely, brother. That was, man, I don't ever want to go back to a place like that again. I mean, it's just dark when there's just in this dark hole and hopeless, and you feel like your only way out is death. But the problem is, at that time in my life, you know, I was a coward, man. I didn't have the courage to do it myself, but I was in the right profession to have somebody do it for me.
Yeah, so let's talk about that night. So we open the book with a traffic stop where you're actually saying you hope that maybe these guys will open fire on you and do what we are setting out to talk about on this show. But before that even happens, we find out later in the book that you were just at the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police parking lot and thinking about doing it. But as you said, you were too scared to do it yourself. So you thought, I'll just be wild, go out there, do my thing, and we'll see what happens from there. You got to explain to me before we get into this whole thing, how you get to a point like that. And does it come on quickly, slowly, or does it just hit you without you even knowing?
You know, for a lot of law enforcement and a lot of veterans, man, I think it all comes on slowly. We just don't realize it, you know, because we compartmentalize so much. And, you know, we tell ourselves that we're Superman when we put on these uniforms, and we're not. You know, we just keep pushing stuff down, pushing it down, pushing it down. We're not really dealing with the demons. And then all of a sudden for me, it just all kind of hit at once. You know, it was a slow grind over the years, but what triggered it was the loss of my mother, which triggered, you know, some issues with my family, then the divorce with my second wife at the time, and then me having my accidental discharge with my shotgun at work, and me thinking the only thing I have left is my job and I'm about to lose that. And it just all hit at once. And what did I have to keep me here at that point? You know, that's when I made the choice. I was like, man, I drove to the FOP lot. I took my Glock 22. I just sat in my car looking at it because I knew somebody was going to find me there, you know. And the thing was, man, I hated to do that to my brothers in blue, but I didn't want nobody else to find me. I wanted the only people that I knew and loved and that I cared about to find me. And I just remember sitting there and I put it to my head and took the slack out the trigger, but I didn't have the courage to actually pull it all the way.
What's going through your mind as you're doing that?
I want to see my mom again. I want to see all my brothers that I lost, and and who here really cares about me? If nobody's going to miss me, the world's going to be a better place without me. And just the fact that this isn't the life that I thought I would live, the life I thought I'd have. I had created this entire fake life, and I was living two separate lives, and it catches up with you, and it caught up with me.
All right, let's go back, because I wanted to set the story, because that, to me, was the best part of the book, the intro. And I told you that when we very first started talking, when I said I found the intro and everything. That, to me, was the best part of the book. That was the most emotional and gut-wrenching part of the story. And the reason I say that is not because there wasn't other things along the way in the book that were bad or that made you think about things. It shows what one person will do when they think that there's no hope. And I think there's a lot more people out there that are to that point where they think there's no hope. They think that no one's out there watching them. But as we'll find out later on in our conversation, there are people that care. There are people that are hidden in the woodwork that are going to come out for you. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, there are, man. And now I feel like now more than ever, especially within the profession of policing, there's a lot more people speaking out, and a lot more the police departments are doing something about it. We now have like an officer wellness program we're doing, and they're trying to raise funds to build an officer wellness center. Because if the crazy thing about law enforcement officers, we can save the world, but some odd reason it's so hard to save ourselves, and if we're not all there mentally, what good are we in uniform? At that point, we're a liability.
Let's talk about your childhood, because that's where we usually start these conversations, but I wanted to talk about that, and then we get to this. So right off the bat, we start talking about your childhood. And the crazy thing that I thought about your childhood was there's so many reversals. When you talk about this, the safety and the sanctity kind of when you were stationed on post as being moved off of post. And then how racism came at you was from a completely left field way. Like, no one sees that coming. So first, let's talk about you growing up with your parents. And I want you to talk about your mom and your dad growing up on the post, and then we transition kind of to off post.
Yeah. So, I was born in Fort Knox, Kentucky, 1984. And both my mom and dad are from Mississippi, in the Mississippi Delta in Bolivar County. So, man, growing up in the military is all I ever knew. Diversity. Like I said, despite my parents being from Mississippi, despite my parents growing up in the 60s in Mississippi, picking cotton and living with real racism, that was never my life and never my experience. So for me growing up, I remember I had a best friend from Panama. His name was Yum. I just had friends. I didn't have black friends. I didn't have white friends. These were my boys, man. And we were all different races, creeds, religions, and we just always got along, man. It was just so perfect. I just remember when the fair would come in the summertime, we'd all ride our bikes down to the fair, down to the PX, then my parents would take me to the fair on Fort Knox. And I would just watch the tanks and the soldiers. The military was literally all I knew growing up. So when it comes to when we moved off a post, it was a weird, because it's like, it was a lot of the same people, because Radcliffe is a military community. But you then realize that not everybody in the military community has always been in the military. And that's when I realized that, I'm different, because I was dark skinned. Like, for me, like I said, growing up on the military post, it was never a thing like, oh man, Dex is really, really dark. He's really, really black. Never heard that until I think it was like 7th grade, when I got on the school bus and I see the black kids in the back of the bus. And I'm what's up, everybody? I'm just a nice kid, man. I really not confrontational person. I want to be everybody's friend. And I remember sitting down in the back of the bus, and then the jokes just started flying. Like, look at this black. I'm like, language wise, brother. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
You explain it how you do in the book.
Yeah, just going to the back of the bus, and then somebody just starts, man, look at this black nigga right here. Look at this black motherfucker. And I'm just like confused, like, well, you're black too, but it just completely caught me off guard, because that was something we never discussed in my house, was like racism or being treated different because of how you look. And like I say, we knew about slavery, but I never knew that other black people would treat me bad because I was darker than them, and it just completely caught me off guard. And man, my life That was a low point for me too, man. Just being that young, not really knowing who you are, not having an identity, and just these kids are just torturing you and terrorizing you every day, wanting to beat you up for being dark skinned, but they're black as well. And just the mob mentality followed, man. And for me, it was just real rough. And I mean, I just took the abuse because, like I said, I never had to fight really growing up. I got in a fight one time in sixth grade, and I beat up the schoolyard bully, Dana Anderson, and that was done. But this, I was outnumbered. I was the only guy there, that dark skin, and all these other black kids are just, ganging up on me. And I'm just like, what do I do? And I'm just scared and terrified. And I would just freeze and I would just take it, and I remember sitting in class during the day. Typically school goes by pretty slow, but man, I remember looking at that clock every day like, oh my God, here they come. Here they come. And so, for me, I had no identity. I had a good best friend that lived next door, but he was a tall white guy, but he saw what was going on. My homeboy was like, nah, I ain't getting involved in none of that. He was just, yeah, he was cool with me when we was off the bus, but I was like, no, I understand. I don't, it's not his battle, but I just remember thinking that we weren't poor, and the people that were picking on me, they lived in the hood in Radcliffe, So for me, I'm thinking, man, maybe if I got some cool clothes, maybe if I got some nice shoes, I'll fit in with everybody. Everybody like, hey man, check out Dex rocking the FUBU, man. Because everybody know back in the day, FUBU was the jams, man. I remember when my mama bought me that orange and black FUBU jacket for Christmas. I was like, man, I'm about to show out to school and stunt on everybody. I had a Fat Albert chain, I had some nice clothes. I remember stepping up on the bus like, yeah. And they was like, oh man, check out Dex's jacket. And so I'm just starting, stunting. And they're like, man, that's a nice jacket. And you know what? That day was great, man, because like nobody said anything to me. And so in my mind, I'm thinking my clothes and this chain I got on is protecting me. So I guess I'm cool now. We all friends now. We cool, right? So I remember the end of the day comes, I'm sitting on the bus. I start getting hot. I take off the jacket. And then I guess one of the sub leaders of the group, his name's Terrell, just reaches over and takes my jacket. And I wanted to fight back so bad, but I was so scared because they were just looking at me in the back of the bus, daring me, bring your black ass back here and see what happened. So I just remember getting off the bus, man. I'm going home and I'm crying. My jacket's gone and I don't want my mom to see me crying. So I go to my room. She knows, like, where's your jacket at, boy? And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to tell her. I don't want to tell her. I was like, kids on the bus took it, mama. What you mean they took that jacket? You know how hard I worked to get that jacket? Man, so she get in the car. Man, we drive over there and I'm just like, man, don't do this, mama. You're going to make it worse. You're going to make it worse. So we drive up, man. She don't know what apartment they live in. And she just started knocking on every door in the complex. Mama Dukes was on a mission to get back that FUBU jacket, boy. Man, we found Terrell's apartment. Man, I remember the smell of smoke coming from this apartment. His mom, you could tell, man, she was a welfare queen, man. And this cat, you could tell he was living a rough life. But, that didn't matter. So, she's like, my son says your son stole his jacket. She's like, Terrell, you got this boy's jacket? Man, I remember he comes back up with the FUBU jacket, man, and gives it to me. We go back to the car and I could smell smoke on it, man. And it was, I was so mad because he stole the magic of the jacket, man. That jacket was like pristine. Nobody in school had that jacket. Now it was like tarnished and tainted. And I didn't want nothing to do with it. But there ain't no way. I was telling my black mama from Mississippi, you worked hard to get me this jacket. I ain't wearing this jacket no more because she would have killed me, So, man, yeah, that was like pretty much my existence for the first couple years in the civilian side of life, man. It started out rough, brother. It really did.
I want to ask you something, and we talk about when you're down on the ground and then from 30,000 feet a lot, and when you get some distance away from it and you can think about it. I want you to think back to that kid now and everything you know from being a police officer, from everything that you've learned about yourself. And you just said it and you can kind of tell it in your voice. This kid was living a rough life. Do you look at that different now in that situation and think maybe, well, hurting people hurt people? Or do you look at it different, or do you still have that animosity? Because childhood stuff can stick with you for a long time where you still don't like the person. But do you look at it differently now?
I look at it completely different, because I am a different person from when I was I guess 12 years old to now 38 years old. Complete different person, So Man, one of the things in my book is, I had to learn how to forgive people and let go. And especially as a cop now, I see why people do a lot of the things they do. When people hurt somebody or steal, it's not necessarily stealing to just steal. Some people are stealing for survival. They need food, and that's one of those things where it's just as a cop, you have to like kind of weigh the options of what you're about to do, But for me, Terrell and all those guys, I mean, he's still in and out of jail. But man, there's a part in my book that a lot of people really liked and enjoyed, But the leader of the pack was a girl named Rhonda Brown in Radcliffe.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah, but she was the one terrorized me, and I was terrified of her, and I was bigger than her. But so for me, like I said, I held all these.
Can I stop you there? I want you to explain just how much bigger than you were than these kids, because you were not an average sized kid growing up. You were a big kid.
I was a big dude, man. Yeah.
So
man.
It's crazy to hear you say, yeah, this girl just terrified me along with this crew she ran. And I want people to understand just how bad this was, because you mention it numerous times in the book about how bad it was when they got that wolf pack mentality going.
Yeah, man. Like they forced me into a corner all the time. Every time I turned around, I was just in a corner and I had nobody there. And I mean, I'm just looking at myself. I know I'm bigger than them. I know I could bust all their asses if I wanted to, but I just did not have that in me. Like I said, I didn't know who I was. I hadn't been tested like that. I grew up in a safe haven of the military base. It is literally a utopia, and now I never had controversy. Now it's here. And, they say when you're in combat, you don't know how you're going to react, when you first make contact. And this was my first contact, man. I did not know how to react. But eventually I grew a pair of balls. And I remember my mom telling me one day, stop letting people push you around, defend yourself, protect yourself. So I remember that one day I was like, man, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to dance. And I remember I went home, I got a sock, put a pool ball in it, put a blade in my pocket, and I put a chain around my neck. I was like, all right, man, we going to war. I gave myself a little op order, and I was like, man, either I'm going to wait for them to get on the bus, get to this point, and then I'm going to lunge at them and attack them, or should I wait for them to come and attack me, And then in my mind, I'm thinking, I got to take out Rhonda because she's the leader first. Then I got to take out Terrell because he's the next biggest to her, and just started plotting, and thank God it never got to that point. They never attacked me, and somehow, slowly but surely, by the grace of God, they just all kind of went away. But even though they went away, the hostility and the anger that I had from that never went away, and I carried that with me for years. Man, even before I became a cop, I always said to myself, I want revenge, and I want to extract it on each of them when I get the opportunity. And I mean, I held on to it for years. And I remember when I became a cop in Louisville, and I was like, man, one day I'm going to run into these cats and I'm going to let them have it. Justifiably, I'm going to let them have it. And man, after I went through all my stuff and all my traumas and my ups and downs, and actually started to find meaning in my life and actually found a real relationship with Jesus Christ, the need for revenge went away. And I knew it went away when I was working off duty at the Galt House one night. We got a call about a homeless vagrant that was sitting up in the hallway that had not paid for a room. And I remember walking up and I could smell booze in the hallway. I'm like, oh man, this person's definitely drunk. And I'm walking up to this person and I'm like, well, I'll be damned. Rhonda Brown, man, she was at her lowest, like trespassing, good to go to jail, no doubt. And I was just like, oh my God, thank you. I have prayed and waited for this moment for 20 plus years. Man, I remember reaching for my handcuffs, like I'm about to show her I'm ready, man. Like, oh, y'all don't even know. I've been waiting forever. And something in me said to myself, like, dude, how is you taking her to jail gonna serve her? Better yet, how's it even really gonna serve you? And like at that point, I had no need to exact revenge on these kids for all they had done to me, because I had moved on. Like I said, I was a different person. And the Bible always says, God won't forgive you unless you've forgiven others. And I had already forgave them. So if I already forgave them, why take this opportunity to use my power, although justifiable and legal? Discretion is a big thing in policing. And man, I used my discretion that night to let her go, because I knew that, you know what? I'm in a better position than she is right now. And I'm not going to be any better than her. If I take advantage of her in her lowest point over something she did to me, like, 15 years later, 15 years ago, And I remember her just getting up. She didn't say much to me, but I remember getting on the escalator and just going down the escalator and just that look in her eyes, like I remember that look. Like I used to see that same look in myself when I would look in the mirror, man, and just that emptiness, that loneliness, that loss. It just seeing her going down that escalator, man. That was the last time I saw her, and she died like a couple years later. And the one thing for me was always weird was people singing her praises, like, man, she was such a nice person and a sweet person. And I'm like, man, this chick was a monster to me. But you know, you know how it is when you die, man. Everybody ain't got nothing but good stuff to say about you, yo. But I'm like, man, now that I'm older, I was like, I wish I had known that version of her. And she had a lot of hurt in her life, man. Anytime you find somebody somewhere reeking of alcohol in a public place, man, they're battling demons, man. So I battled those demons, and she was battling demons. And why should I add to her demons? Locking her and putting her in jail was going to help her. Like, it wasn't even going to do nothing for me.
Did she remember you?
Oh, she remembered me.
Really?
Well, I had to spark her memory because she was sitting there. I was like, "You remember me, Rhonda?" She was like, looking at me like, "How you know my name?" I was like, "It's me." I started calling him all the names he used to call me on the bus. What's up, Midnight? What's up, Blackie? What's up, Spook? Half past midnight, and she heard those names and like her eyes got big, like, oh my God, it's him. Like, yeah, what's up now? But it did feel good to put a little bit of fear in her, but be lying if I said I didn't, man. It felt good to like get a little respect, but the respect don't come from the uniform, man. I hope that she respected me more for actually letting her go.
Yeah. I think the only thing that would have made it better is if she would have had that FUBU jacket on when you saw her. That would have been.
She grabbed that joint from the Goodwill.
Yeah. So I want to ask you something, and it kind of I don't want to say it bothered me during the book, but it made me think a lot. You mention your mom tons in the book. You mention your dad, but you never really mention life lessons or stand up for yourself or learning who you are or learning about what you're doing. Can you describe the difference between your dad in your life and your mom in your life?
Yeah, man. So my dad, he is an old school Southern black man, brother. I mean, there's no talk of, there's no I love yous. There's no, hey, you did great, kid. It's just, hey, I'm out working, providing. When I tell you to do something, you do it. That was it. And the only thing we really talked about was the Bible. I remember I asked my dad one time, we were shooting basketball in a very rare moment in the backyard. And I asked him, I was like maybe 11, 12. And I was like, said something about sex. And we're a Southern Pentecostal family. He's like, only thing you need to know about sex, boy, is for married people. I don't want to hear nothing else about it. Yeah, that was it. That was it. We didn't, man, my father was a provider. That was it. A provider. He taught me some lessons, about racism when we had an encounter in I forgot, I think we were in Tennessee. He was driving trucks after he retired, and I was denied service by this white guy at this restaurant. And I didn't understand at the time because I was so young, I was like, man, like, why can't I have this food? Like other people are eating, my dad, black man from Mississippi, he was like, nah, bro, we out here. Let's go, son. Let's leave. He saw it, and he explained it to me that, there's going to be bad people in this world that don't like you because of the color of your skin. But don't use that as an excuse to be a crappy person. Work hard and you will eventually get what you want, and that's pretty much what I got from my dad. That, and I used to get dumped with the Bible. That was it. Everything for me and my dad was church related. My mom, she was a mother, loved me through it all, was there for everything. My mom, my best moments, my worst moments, but she was also a terror when she needed to be. She would break out the switch, make me go outside and pick a switch, strip off the little outside of it, and then wear me out, but after she would whip me, she would console me and love on me and tell me she loved me, and she'd tell me why she did it. And because, she had these high expectations for me. So my mom was always a central point in my life. And that's why she's mentioned so much throughout the book, because she was always there. My dad was around, but that was it. So the life lessons I learned from him were important, but I feel like a lot more of what I learned from him now that I'm older, I'm looking back, is I've learned what not to do in a lot of things because, my mom has been deceased as of today, August 29th, 2022. My mom's been gone 12 years, so for me, it's been, just, she always used to tell me, don't treat your wife like your father treats me. And I would hear that and I didn't know what that meant until now that I'm older and I have a wife and 2 kids, and I know that she's looking down at me proud of the man I am and the father that I am and the husband that I am.
So when I hear you say, because you said my dad, and I think it just kind of slipped out, my dad was a provider. Is that how you look at him?
Yes.
Like as a provider? I mean, he's still to this day, is that how you look?
Yeah, well, not even today, because like I said, I haven't not talked to my dad in years. I mean, after my mom's suicide that he was involved with, it's hard for me to look at him as, even as a person, he's just some guy that exists. I mean, he was around my entire life, but he drove my mother to a point to where she felt like she was no longer, able to live on this earth, and he, pretty much forced her to kill herself because of his treatment of her. So it's hard for me to look at this man and see him as anything other than a monster, just because you forced the greatest woman I've ever known, that loved me more than anybody. You forced her to make her feel like she was worthless. So, and I have 2 kids, and my kids know they got a granddaddy, but they don't know who he is. And I'm like, how can I let you see your grandkids when you haven't even acknowledged your part in my mother's death? You haven't acknowledged anything. If anything, I had almost had a mental breakdown one night when I talked to him for the first time. And it was like 8 years after my mom's suicide. And he's very stern, very, he don't, there's no giving this man. Like when he's set in his ways, he is set in his ways. And he told me, you need to forgive yourself and move on, boy. I cussed my father out on that phone, something awful, and that's something I was brought up to never do. The Bible says, children, obey thy mother and father, respect your mother and father. And I just didn't see him as that, and I just remember I hung up the phone, and man, I was just, for days, I was just in this fog and this haze, because this is the man that brought me into the world, and you don't expect your father to look at the worst moment in your life and tell you, you need to forgive yourself and move on. I'm like, that was your wife. Those were your actions that led her to put the gun to her head and pull the trigger, but you're putting it on me. And so, I forgave him, and we had bits and small conversations. He would text me, and it'd be real, real small. I was on the Dave Ramsey show, because I did my debt-free scream, and he was like, hey, son, I'm proud of you. You did good. We talk, but as soon as I tried to bring up my mother, he don't want to talk about it. It's almost to him like she never existed. And I'm like, until we can talk about that and get past that, there ain't nothing here for us, man. It's the same with my grandparents. I started talking to my grandparents, my dad's parents, and man, we talked about a lot of stuff except that. And when I brought up my mother, my grandma said, well, babe, we just need to move on. We just got to go on with life. I'm like, y'all saying go on with life like this woman was never here. Like your son didn't have put her in a position to make her feel worthless and kill herself. So, I had to cut the cancer out of my life, because we're family, we're blood, but until you can acknowledge my mother's presence and acknowledge what happened, there's nothing for us to talk about, because I've moved on in my life, but I still have scars. I still feel the hurt. I mean, I still smell my mom's blood 12 years later. I still see her laying in that room in the back of the hospital under that light, under that white blanket, and the nurse pulling back that blanket is showing me my mother's head with the bullet hole in it, and the exit wound coming out the eye, and the dry blood in her hair. I still remember that. And until my family can talk about that with me, there's nothing to talk about, because something happened. But there's this thing, and I'll say black families, but I mean, that's any family, man. Dude, that's almost any family. Every family's got dirt that they just don't want to talk about and bring up. But for me, I was just like, you know what? Till we can talk about this, y'all, there's nothing here. We share blood and we share a last name, but that's it.
2 other questions before we move on. One, are there people that are past redemption? And I pose that question to you because of how you live your life now, what you base your life in. But are there people past redemption?
Are they past, like they can't be redeemed?
They can't be redeemed. Like it just, no matter what they do, it's never gonna. No. And I'm talking on a human level. So there is a thing that your dad could do, and it would make, I won't say everything better, because of course it would make everything better, but you could have a relationship.
Absolutely. And the same with my sister, the same with her. She told me I didn't deserve anything, and took all the money, $265,000 in stole my mom's ashes, and I haven't talked to her not a lick in 12 years, So, man, I don't believe that there's no such thing as nobody's past redemption. Because if that was the case, Lord knows I've done my fair share to hurt people. I've done stupid things. I'm on my third wife. I'm sure if you talk to any of my other two wives, they'll tell you Dexter's a horrible person, and I take up for that in the book and say, I made my fair share of mistakes. So if anybody's not, there's no one that's able to be redeemed. I'm not able to be redeemed. So I'm not going to sit here and say nobody's past it, but I have a bar and a certain standard that's set in my life. Man, if I'm wrong and I hurt somebody, no matter what it is, and they tell me that I hurt them, even though I might not agree, if I see that what I did hurt that person, I will tell them I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you, because I know what it's like to be hurt. I know what it's like to be the person on the ground getting kicked around. That's what kind of led me to law enforcement, man. It was just, I know what it's like to be bullied. I know what it's like to be, to be too afraid to stand up for yourself. And so, no, I just don't believe in that. Nobody's redeemable. I mean, we are all humans and we all have some sort of value. Our value might be different to other people, but we all have value. My sister, I've not talked to her. I know she's got a kid now, but she talks shit about me on on her little show she does on YouTube. But you know what? I don't have any ill will towards her, because I look at the life that I'm living, and I live a good life.
It's so funny that you went right into that, because she was the next question. You did a lot for her growing up, and then everything just kind of went off the rails. You found out that she knew about your mom and stuff that she was battling, stuff that she had talked about, and she never mentioned it to you. The stuff that you mentioned after the death and after the funeral and all these kind of things. I want to know what made that switch happen, because as far as I can tell in the book, you got along relatively well younger. You helped take care of her when things were tough. And where was that switch?
We were never, super close, but we could always tolerate each other and work together, but for me, I think the switch was my second wife. My family did not like her, and I made the choice. I was like, well, if y'all don't love her, y'all don't love me, so it was kind of like America right now, where we got the line divided down the street, down the middle of the country. Are you on the left or are you on the right? Well, if you're with them people, you're not with me. We can't talk, and that's kind of what my life was, where I drew this line. I was like, well, if you don't love my wife, you don't love me. And so I made the choice, and that crushed my mother. Man, I crushed my mother's soul, and that was never my intention, but I wanted to make a new life for myself after the Army. I was trying to figure out who I was, and figure out a new path and a new purpose, and I found my wife, and in my mind, I'm like, this is a good thing. But of course, mothers have this intuition where they see things that we don't see. I fell in love with the big button to smile, and I paid for it dearly. But my mom, she always told me, she was like, you're gonna rule the day that you marry that girl. And my mother was right, but my sister sided with my mother, and because of that, we were at odds. And now that I go back to think about it, my sisters talked to my auntie and said that my auntie told me, she was like, your sister's mad. And she says that you know what you did. And I'm sitting there for years. I'm like, I know what I did. Like, what the hell did I do? And I thought about it for years. And what I've come to the conclusion is, I think the major switch was at 26 years old in my police uniform. I made the call to take my mother off life support, because my mother always told me that if anything happened to her, hey, don't leave me on life support, Dexter. Don't leave me like this. I don't want people looking at me. Just let me go. And that day on August 29th, 2010, when I got that call in my police uniform working a detail, I was not ready that day to be the one to take my mother off life support, because who goes to work thinking, man, today is going to be the day I'm going to get a call from a police department saying that my mother's been shot and is in a hospital bed, and I'm going to have to make this life or death call. I was not prepared for it. Only thing I knew was those conversations that my mother and I had, where she told me repeatedly, don't leave me here like this. It didn't cross my mind to call my sister and say, Antoinette, mom's on life support. I don't know what to do. All I kept hearing is my mother's words in my head. Don't leave me here like this. Let me go. Just let me go. And I think she's upset that I didn't keep her on life support for a while and let people come and say their final goodbyes, but if she's holding that against me, she's got to understand I was in the moment too. And there was nobody in this moment with me. It was just me by myself. Now, I've been to Iraq, and Iraq was tough, but my God, Seeing your mother laying in a hospital bed with brown paper bags on her hands to preserve evidence. All these people are asking you questions. Police chiefs are calling you, police lieutenants are calling you, asking questions. And then I remember the social worker asked me if my mom had any issues with suicide or depression. I'm like, no, she would never do that, man. So in my mind, somebody killed my mother. So it was just one of those things where I wasn't prepared that day. And maybe, maybe I did made the wrong choice. In my heart, I know I didn't. In my heart, I know I did right because I did what my mother asked me to do. But maybe I made the wrong choice for my family because I didn't give them that time to get there. But when I was in that moment, man, it was a small moment in a dark place, and I didn't know what to do. I just did what my mother told me.
We're going to come back to your sister in a little bit when we get to after that. I want to kind of digress and go back a little bit into the military because I want to talk about some of the stuff that went into the depression because we've talked about, I mean, we've kind of hit all over the place with the wives and things like that. But joining the military, you had seen growing up, that was, I mean, you said it was a utopia, which I was in the military. I don't know if I would ever describe it as a utopia. Maybe from the standpoint of a dependent or a child or something like that,
yes.
but never in the military as a utopia. But that's all you knew growing up. You had seen some guys when you were in high school, and we're going to bring them up in a minute, that had joined the Marines and different stuff like that. But you decided that was what you were going to do. When you join, you go to the 10th Mountain. You're very, very happy. I want to talk quickly about, and the reason I want to talk quickly about it, because I think it's a small part to the story, but I think it lends later on. As you're joining, you're going through basic and everything like that. When you're done, you get married to your first wife, correct?
Correct.
You know that more than likely you're going to go to the Middle East. Was that a decision based on, I'm going to go to the Middle East, I need to make sure people are taken care of back here? Or was it based on, I think I'm going to be with this girl for the rest of my life and it's young puppy love? Or was it a kind of combination of the two?
It was young puppy love, man. That was my first real girlfriend. And when I tell you she was a banger in high school, man, she was a banger. That was my first everything, So I was just head over heels with her. And I was like, man, I am not letting this go. Because most of my life, like I say, I grew up dark skinned. Ooh, he ugly, he dark skinned, and now that I found somebody that's gorgeous as her, you're like, this chick's way out of my league, man. I better wife her up real quick, So it was one of those. A lot of people are afraid to admit stuff, but I was afraid of always being alone. That who else is going to love me, So I fall in love and attach real quick because it was like, man, if this go away, who else is going to want me, And so it was. That's literally what it is, man. A lot of people aren't going to admit to that, but I will admit to that. Like I said, I'm an open book. I don't care, but that's what it was. That insecurity.
Let me ask you though, because we were both young when we joined and we were first in the military. I want to understand though, when you say that you don't want to let her go, but it's not really the dream that you sent out to be in this. It's hard to do, especially being deployed, especially in the job that you're in. How do you get through that as a young a guy as you were? And everything going on. And the reason I bring that up is because I noticed in the book, every time you call back home, well, not every time, but a lot when you call back home, you're getting, whether you're talking to your mom or your wife, people died. People you knew died. This guy died. This guy died. This guy died. So you're hearing constant bad things. You're not even really getting to appreciate the relationship that you have with this wife because it's nothing but bad news around everything. So how do you fight through that as a young guy, as being married as young as you are, and then for the reasons that you said you got married?
I don't think, man, that's hard to answer, because when you're young, the world is, magical and everything's possible when you're young, And for me, it's just, there's a part I put in my book where I said, it was the night before I deployed, she and I were just sitting there laying in bed. I just remember her laying on me, her long hair and that smell, and I was like, man, we're going to be together forever, no matter what. And not even war in my mind and in my heart could tear us apart, and for me, that was the love, I thought our love was that strong. There was nothing in the world that could separate us, but that's because I didn't know war. I knew war from TV. I knew war from video games. I knew war from the news. My dad didn't get to go to the Gulf War, so I did not get that experience of having a parent that was deployed to a combat zone, but it was a quick reality check when I called home to her and she told me that, hey, Deshaun Ote died, and we were getting ready to cross the Burma in Iraq. Deshaun, I was best friends with his brothers, and I remember seeing him in his Marine Corps camp. He's at school, recruiting after he got through a boot camp, just full of life, man. Just, he was the definition of a Marine. And I remember calling home and she told me that, and it's just my world crushed, and it just reality hit at once. Like, this is real, man. People I know and love are dying over here. This isn't a game, and this isn't the whole, when you go to the range and everybody's shooting up targets like, yeah, man, we're going to go fuck these guys up. We're going to kill a bunch of insurgents. But we never account for the fact that they have guns and bullets and bombs too. And Americans die. And my friends died. And the Army trains you for a lot of stuff. But the Army does not train you how to deal with a lot of death. And you just kind of learn to find your way, and you just kind of learn. And like I said, but the thing is, the way we learn is very unhealthy. Like I said, we compartmentalize, we just shove it away. And eventually you run out of places to shove stuff, and it all comes out.
Going back to the wife, you say that it's all becoming real for you. At that moment, it's becoming very real for her too. Is that going to cause tension? Is that going to cause a friction between you two? Because I would think in reading the book that she looks at it at that time as, well, shit, now I'm stuck and this is what I'm going to have to deal with. This dude might not even come back home. So do you think that starts that little form of friction right then?
That's hard to say, because she was very supportive, man. Like, now that I'm older and I look back, I'm like, man, she was actually a good wife. She was very supportive. It's just, man, we're 19 years old. And at 19, man, it's weird. We got these new police officers in the department that are like 21. I'm looking at them like, damn, these are babies, man. And then I think about myself like, damn, I was stupid when I was 19,
Yeah.
Getting married and think we're going to be together forever, So I can't put that on her and say that she was a bad wife and that, what she was thinking. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I would never go to say that. I don't want you to take that as I was saying that. No. I think my point of saying that was everyone's growing together. You're growing on two different sides of the world and you're seeing different things, but you guys are kind of growing up together. And I think for young people, I've been married for 25 years. I got married when I was 21 in the military. And I've been married the whole time since. My wife was in the military too. But now, like you said, looking back on it, wow, like you're young and stupid and you do dumb things and you don't know how to even be a man yet. So when you throw all those things into the mix, I can only imagine what you're thinking going into battle. Now, as you cross the berm and you go over into it, you're already thinking about this. Now, you pointed out again, and it was interesting to me that you pointed it out. You talk about kind of revenge again. But you talk about it for taking your friend away. Now you're looking at these insurgents and you're looking at the people that you're going against and you want revenge on them. I don't think that was by happenstance that's the second time in the book.
No, it's definitely not. I wanted revenge from the moment 9/11 happened, when we found out what was going on. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm ready to go to Afghanistan. Let's go get some, and I ended up going to Iraq, and regardless of how everybody feels about Iraq, the war and the politics, I don't let that affect me in my service because I know why I went to fight. Regardless if I was lied to when we got in there because politicians lied, my reason to go and fight was an honorable reason because my country was attacked, and I stand by that, regardless of if the politicians were wrong or not, but man, to see my country attacked and just seeing the towers fall. And you just start looking at people different. And, we always talk about how great America is and how unified we were after 9/11. We were very unified after 9/11 unless you were Arab and Muslim. You weren't necessarily in the picture. So just I remember being in boot camp. We sing the cadences. Up jumps an Iraqi. I got him with my knife. We dehumanize these people so we can easily go and kill them. And so to me, every Iraqi I saw was an enemy. And I remember the first time I met an Iraqi up close, this guy was Falkley. He was the truck driver, and I'm like, so, so for me, I'm like, hey, Pitt, you're going to go escort this Iraqi truck driver around. He's going to drive you around the base, and like, you're going to make sure he doesn't do anything crazy. So, man.
Wasn't he just going to like clean the toilets? It was like a crazy thing that he was just going around. Yeah. And you're instantly on the defense.
Yeah, because in my mind, every Iraqi is the enemy. And dude, there was this one point, man. So I hop in the truck with him. And where were you? Did you go to Iraq? No. So, man, Iraq, I was on Camp Victory. And Camp Victory is an enormous base, one of the biggest bases in Iraq. So in my mind, I thought Camp Victory was all just one giant base. I did not realize that there were other bases within it. And man, I remember I thought I was getting kidnapped at one point because we go out the ECP, entry control point, but it's just to another base. And I'm just looking at him like, hey, where we going? Hey. He's like, no, mister. We're just going to the other base. Oh, man, dude, I loaded. I was ready to kill this guy because, they teach us that these are the enemy. That's all you need to know. I didn't see these as people, and I just remember I sat in that truck. My back was not against the seat. My back was against the door. I had my rifle at the low ready, just awkwardly watching this guy. And I can't even imagine now thinking to him what he must have been thinking, like, yo, what the hell is wrong with this dude? I'm literally here to clean up y'all shit, man. And this guy, he's just looking at me like, this dude is crazy, And he slowly starts talking to me, and I'm like, he's trying to deceive me. He's the enemy. If I blink, he's gonna kill me. He's the enemy because, like, I'm 19. We were attacked by, Muslims. Every Muslim's an enemy, and I didn't have the mental capability to think for myself and realize, well, maybe not all Muslims are bad. Maybe this guy is just actually working to provide for his family, So I'm just sitting there riding with this guy, and he starts talking to me. And I don't know what it is. Maybe the human side of me, like, it finally came on where he just started talking to me, telling me about his family. Then I opened up to him a little bit, and we started talking and laughing. And I remember one point I was like, man, I'm letting my guard down. The training and the soldier in me was like, man, you're gonna get caught off guard. You're going soft, man. But man, by the time I was done with that, I realized that, like I said, the Army didn't teach me this. I learned this myself, that all these people here are not bad people. This guy's literally just here trying to make a living and take care of his family, in this war-torn country. And I didn't realize that.
Fast forward that to being a cop. Did it pay off for you?
Yeah, man. Whew. When I became a, as a rookie officer, man, your thinking is very black and white. It is very black and white. And I think it was the same when I became an officer. It was like, hey, this guy stole the A. So guess what? We're going to B. He's going to jail. Black and white. That's it. There's nothing else to think about. KRS law says this. You did it. These are the elements. You have met them. I'm locking your ass up. So I remember, like, it was my first call, man. And we get a call to Thornton's on Bardstown Road. And Paco, my Puerto Rican FTO, big dude, he was retired military, and he was freaking policing for like 20 plus years. Like, this guy's stealing. He's like, hey, go detain him. So I just walk up, I'm anxious, and I'm just grabbing my cuffs like, oh, yeah, here we go. And I go to put the cuffs on him. He's like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, he's going to jail. He stole. He was like, have you talked to this man? I'm like, no, he's got all this stuff hanging out of his pockets. He was like, still, he's a human being, man. Talk to the guy, figure out what's going on. Turns out, the guy had kids at the hotel next door. Broke. He didn't have no money. It was Father's Day. He went over to steal to feed his kids. And in my mind, I'm like, this guy's lying. And Paco's like, stand right here for me. Paco's like, what room are you in, man? Paco goes over to the room, verifies the guy's kids are in there and they ain't got no food. Paco comes back, pulls out his wallet, throws some money down. This one's on me. Happy Father's Day. If I catch you again next time, I'm going to bust your ass. That was my first experience in policing, man, because I thought that it's just black and white. There's good people and bad people. And you know what? Humans were a little bit more complicated than that, man.
It's hard, though, and I can say it from my point of view, too. It's hard when you talk about that kind of stuff where he goes next door and check. You hear the stories so many times. And I say this a lot. If you say you're not jaded, no matter what you've done in the police department, you're a liar. You're a liar. You are.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly battling in your brain. Is it true? Is it not? Is this for real? Is it not? Is he on bad luck because of his decisions? Is he on bad luck? Because shit happens. And you're constantly on that back and forth. And the reason I ask you, did you learn that in the military, and did it pay for you coming over into policing and learning that? And there was stuff that was said in the past by people I know that changed the way I policed from the very beginning. And this is people that were close to me, statements that they would make that stuck in my brain and made me change the way I did it. And as much as you may hate the statement, you like the outcome that came from it. So going back into Iraq, when we're talking about it, something that popped out to me was you were talking to a buddy of yours, and you had I don't even know how to describe it, like who would get a wounded in action first?
Yeah, my boy Randy.
So I'm wondering, and I read this and I thought, man, that's a weird thing to have. Do you think that set you down a course? Because there's so many things that happened before the injury. Do you think that kind of mentality put you down that path?
I've always been told growing up, man, that the tongue has the power to speak life, death. And you can speak stuff into existence, but man, when we were doing that, we were in Kuwait getting ready to cross the border. We were getting our vehicles together. And I don't know if anybody's aware, but 2004, when we were in Iraq, we did not have the best equipment. We did not. And that's the Army. And the Army gets better equipment than Marines. So it was rough going, man. These Humvees had no hard armor. I mean, I remember one of them, man, had a giant hole in the floor. You could drive down the road and you could put your hand through it and touch the road if you wanted to. But to save your life, they're like, hey, here's 2 sandbags. This will save you, So I guess it was the stress reaction, like, man, dudes are getting blown up by these new weapons called IEDs. Dudes are dying over here. It's like, so what are my chances of surviving? And how do you deal with that as a, 19-year-old man getting ready to go in a country where your friend just got killed, So it's like, man, how do you deal with it? Comedy, just make jokes and laugh, So I just remember him, man. We got into this competition, man. I was like, bro, I'm gonna get home way before you, homie. And I did. But so weird. So I remember one time we were out and his vehicle rolled over. No, excuse me. No, it was his vehicle got hit by an ID. It was the first real ID we came in contact with. It was on Route Forest Green in Abu Ghraib. And I mean, I'm thinking as soon as the explosion went off, like, man, Randy's gone. He's dead. Oh my God. Then the smoke clears and he's walking around. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that motherfucker, you ain't winning, bro. Hold up, man. Soon as I realized he was okay, you go back to that joking part of it, man. But, of course, when in the moment you're thinking, oh my God, my best friend just died in front of me. But, thank God he's alive and he survived. But yeah, just, it's that dark sense of humor. It's the same with the police department, man.
Absolutely.
It's that dark humor is how we make it through and survive. And I know people look at me sometimes, the things I say, I'm like, did this dude you just really say that? Like, yeah, I did. The more inappropriate, the funnier.
So is that the time when his ID got hit? Is that the time when you were, you had made kind of your first mistake of focusing on him instead of kind of outer perimeter? Do you know what story I'm talking about in the book?
Yeah.
Is that it?
No, that was man, I think that was, I get him confused. My God, it's been freaking like 16, 17 years. But yeah, that was the day my buddy Luke Post got hit. We were rolling in Abu Ghraib. It was just one of the days. It was real quiet. Just nothing's going on. I mean, we hadn't seen any action or combat. I mean, nothing, just rolling around the Iraqi countryside. And then we get moved to Abu Ghraib where it's real. They hate us in Abu Ghraib because of the Abu Ghraib prison scandal that happened. in April, So we're driving down the road, and I just remember hearing that thunderous boom, and looking behind and seeing that fireball engulf the Humvee behind me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're all dead. They're all dead, And then the smoke clears, and this is my first ever, I'm not gonna say contact with the enemy, but contact with the enemy weapon. And I just remember, I'm a machine gunner. I'm supposed to cover my sector of fire in case people start shooting at us. And I'm supposed to, sling some lead, but there's nobody to shoot. There's pandemonium. People are running. This crowded little areas, just people are scattering. And I don't know. I remember this guy on this red Vespa just zipping away, just getting away from the scene. And I'm like, that's probably the guy that set the bomb off, But I had no clue. And I didn't know what was going on. And I had drilled and trained for this over and over and over. This is what you do. Contact left. All right. If contact left, man, we're going to jump out, move to the right side of the Humvee, take cover over there, and I just froze as I saw my buddy Luke Post laying on the ground in a pool of blood. And I just remember crying out, Luke, Luke, and I was terrified. Like, my friend just died in front of me. And I remember Sergeant Cardenas like, Pitts, pull fucking security. You can't help him from there. And that's when I realized, like, I was not up to par as a soldier, because this was my first actual moment in combat with an enemy weapon, and I failed my mission. Thank God nobody got it, and nobody died. Thank God, nobody started shooting. But, because I talked myself up like a lot of people do, man. We talk ourselves up to these situations where we're like, man, when this happens, I'm going to do this and that. Oh, I'm going to be a badass. I'm going to be a hero. When my moment happened, I froze because I was scared and I was nervous, and I'm focusing on my friend that's dying, not my job as a soldier. And I feel like so many guys, a lot of veterans and police officers embellish on how tough they are. And, but the truth is, man, nobody really knows how they're going to react. Even with all my training, I still did not react the proper way. But after we had our AAR, I realized the error of my ways, and Sergeant Cardenas called me out in front of everybody. That's what a good leader's supposed to do. When you mess up, guess what? You get your ass chewed and handed to you. When you do right, you get praise. I messed up that day. He told me, he's like, dude, you need to focus on your job. We are depending on you on that 240 machine gun. We need you. And I remember hearing that we need you. My brothers need me. So the second time was when my buddy Randy got blown up. And that's when I realized, like, man, all right, Randy's vehicle's hit. Put one in the chamber and start scanning my sector of fire. Of course, in the back of my mind, I'm praying like, man, let him be okay, God, let him be okay. But also give me somebody to shoot in the face right now, because these bastards just hit us again. And there was nobody to shoot because, the Iraqis, they knew they couldn't stand up with us toe to toe, So I just scanned my sector of fire for, I don't know how long we stood there. It seemed like forever, until we, got the vehicle hooked up and rolled it out of the way and got out of the kill zone, and got back to base. And that's when I realized, all right, I'm ready to do this job now for real. I'm ready to be a soldier. Like, I was ready to go that second time. First time I failed, I was like, I am not failing my brothers a second time.
Talking about good leadership, I want to talk about Staff Sergeant Linder.
Oh.
It's crazy to hear in the book when you talk about this guy, because there is obviously an instant animosity between you two. Obviously things happen. You have good leadership there, but I think it's proper to talk about this guy where we're at right now because of something you say later on in the book. Let's talk about Sergeant Linder, Staff Sergeant Linder. What kind of problems you guys had with each other, and after we'll do the injury, and then what happens with you and Staff Sergeant Linder after your injury.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, man, he was my staff sergeant when I first got to Fort Drum. He was not there. He was on leave or some sort of training. And I remember the first time I met him, me and my boy Cox, my battle buddy, he calls us downstairs. Bring all your gear. He just walks up to us, salty, just takes our canteens and just pulls them out and just flings them. I'm like what the what just happened? It just didn't explain to us. He's like, you're all fucked up, Pitts, both you and Cox. And I'm just like, what did I do wrong? Like, how do I make it right? And I tell people, I was not a PT stud, bro. I was not. Now, if you give me a rucksack, I can hump all day. You can load me up like a mule. I can walk fast forever. But when it came to running in the Army, I am not your guy. And man, if you were in the Army, you know, you could be the biggest shitbag in the company. You could do cocaine on the weekends and get found in a rental car with a bunch of dead prostitutes in the back. But if you can run a perfect 2-mile run and you're a PT stud, they will give you grace. And I was not that guy. I could not run. So I developed this reputation of being a piece of shit, you know, and I knew everything. I knew my weapon systems. I knew my general orders. I knew the the infantry Bible, the FM 7-8. You know, I knew my stuff, yo, but I just could not get the running part down, yo. So I was automatically a piece of shit. And I guess he just looked at me as I was not a good soldier, you know? And I mean, I was 19. I whined and I cried and I complained all the time, like, oh, these guys are being too hard on me. And I was just miserable, man. Miserable. That's why I have a chapter in my book called The Not So Golden Dragon, because we were the golden dragons. And I was like, I did not feel golden. I was like, man, I'm always the dude in the back of the run. Like, damn. And I'm trying my ass off to run. And I just could not get that running part down. Everything else, I was Gucci. You know, I could outshoot my gunner on the gun range. But that running, man, and we just had that animosity, man. He just treated me different than everybody. And I guess because I wasn't making that standard in his mind, you know. So, I mean, I pulled out my old diary from Iraq and when we were in Kuwait, and I remember reading this excerpt about
all I see in my head when you say that is you sitting on your bed with your legs crossed in the back, like, dear diary.
Let me tell you about this motherfucker. Yeah. Because I remember I just put in there, I was like, why do you treat me so different than everybody else, you know? Yeah. But, you know, I want to say, you know, that I don't know what it was. You know, we just didn't, that vibe just did not click. But it's so weird because, you know, I put the book out. I changed his name in it, of course, but I actually got a friend request from him on Facebook like a couple weeks ago. Super odd. I mean, he's not said anything to me yet. I've not said anything to him. We're in a lot of the same groups, you know, but we've not said anything, you know, because I know that awkwardness is still there, you know, so it's eventually we're going to have a conversation.
Maybe he's grown too.
I would hope so. I've grown, you know, but man, yeah, I mean, man, so there was one time, you know, and the biggest thing for me was the hypocrisy, man. I don't like hypocrites. And I remember one time, you know, a lot of soldiers were losing their eyesight from IEDs, from shrapnel. And I just remember they brought us these bogey ESS goggles. And they're like, hey, anytime we go outside the wire, you need to put on your goggles. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I remember we're out riding in Abu Ghraib and I'm looking at something in the distance and I'm trying to figure out what the hell I'm looking at. I can't tell. So I take off my shaded ESS goggles and I'm peering off into the distance. And I just hear Sergeant Lindemann, Pitts, put your fucking goggles back on. And I'm like, Sergeant, I'm looking at something. Pitts, I just gave you order. Put your fucking goggles back on. Roger, Sergeant. Then here we go. When I give you an order, you do what I tell you to do. You know, and I'm just like, man. And as he's telling me this, he ain't got his damn goggles on. You know, I'm just looking at him like, bro, really? You really you gonna fry me for the same thing that you're doing now? Like, at least be fair about it. At least call yourself out. If you're gonna call me out, at least be doing the right thing yourself. You know, that's what really set me off, you know. And I remember one time we were at setting up a little entry control point. And man, I remember he pointed his rifle at his best friend, another staff sergeant, and he pulled the trigger and it said click. You know, he had took the magazine out, ejected the round, you know, send the chamber back forward, and there's no round in it, so it just went click. And I just remember the other staff sergeant was like, yo, what the hell, man? And I'm watching this like, bro, that is a major, major violation. But because it's between two staff sergeants that are friends, it's cool. I'm like, man, if I had done that, man, they would have had me on a plane back to Leavenworth, you know? And so the hypocrisy, man, it just got to me. And just as y'all see with my book, you know, like I can take a lot of shit for a long time, but eventually once I get back into a corner, I fight back and I snap. And it happened with him that day, the goggle incident. You know, he's like, you know, meet me at the, we got back from patrol. He's like, meet me at my room as soon as we're done from patrol. And so I go meet him at his room. He tells me, you know what you're going to do? You're going to wear your goggles around post everywhere you go. You're going to be in full battle rattle, Pitts. I don't care where you are. If you're taking a shit, you're wearing your goggles, you know? And I was just like, Roger that, Sergeant. And I just had it at that moment. He went into his room and just that rage inside of me, man, just that uncontrolled rage, I just went black, just my vision. And I just remember running up to that door, banging on that door, like, come out of here, you motherfucker, let's fight. Because I remember all the stories back in the day. They're like, yo, if you got a problem with somebody in the Army, no matter rank, you could take it to the wood line. We'll take off the rank. We'll handle this like men. We'll solve it and we'll go on from there. And that's what I wanted to do because I was tired of the way he treated me. And so I'm just knocking on his door, banging on his door, threatening him. I'm going to kick the shit out of you, motherfucker. Come out here now, and just banging on his door. And he never came out. And my squad, man, they just pulled me down. Like, Pitts, calm down, man. It's not worth it. Let it go. I'm like, no, I'm tired of this shit, man. I'm sick of this shit. And so, they pull me down. They calm me down, and then this is why I love the Army. All my buddies, man, nobody does anything alone. Everyone suffers together. And they told me, he was like, man, my squad or my team leader was like, oh, look, if it make you feel better, we will all wear our goggles everywhere we go. We just came from patrol and we were like, man, let's go to the DFAC. Let's get something to eat. So we all put on full battle rattle. And we're walking to the chow hall looking like a bunch of dorks, full battle rattle into the chow hall, ordering our food, going down the line, and then, we're sitting there eating our dinner with our helmets on and our ESS goggles looking like idiots. And then, we all just start laughing, man. And next, everything's all right. It's just like I'm with my boys. Like, what the hell with it, man. And one of them was just like, Pitts, I didn't know you had that in you, man. Like, I did not know you could get that aggressive because I'm by nature younger. I just not a truly aggressive person, just never been me. But like I said, I get back into a corner, man, and I snap.
Let me play devil's advocate on that. Are you in the wrong? With what happened with him? I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying you're wrong.
If we're going by military standard, yes. You don't. Yes, I was because I was E3. He was E6. Yes, absolutely. I was in the wrong. But as a man.
So let me ask you, and I ask you that to ask you this. So you say you're in the wrong. Do we go back to that thing where you're a young, because I think we've all done it. We've all said stuff we're not supposed to say to bosses in the military. And I would even go so far as to say maybe stuff's been said to bosses in law enforcement. And after you do it, immediately when it's done, you're like, uh-oh, I shouldn't have done that. Was that the way it was with you? Were you walking away from it going,
No, I was convicted in that moment,
So you were ready to take whatever came behind it.
Yeah, I was ready to go to Leavenworth, man. I was ready to face whatever they're going to send at me, whatever punishment. At that point, it would have been worth it just because I was so mad. I was just tired of being treated like the black stepchild. And literally I was like, I was the only black guy on the freaking squad, heck, like the only 2 in the platoon, like maybe 4 or 5 in the whole company, so that'd be the easy route for me to go as but see, that wasn't even my thought that I was black because that was just not my upbringing.
That's why I brought him up, because I want to get to that. Let's talk about the injury. They tell you always pay attention to your spidey sense out here. And it was going off that night. Now, I have to understand, because the way you write it in the book, I had to read it like 3 times because I thought I read it wrong. When you're explaining that you think something's off that night, there's something you shouldn't be there. You're explaining that. Am I giving it proper credit?
I will say from the moment I woke up that day, there was something in the atmosphere. From the moment I stepped out of my room and put on my gear and we got in that vehicle, I felt somebody or something was trailing me and watching me. I could feel something negative and sinister in the air.
Okay. So walk us through that, because the reason I brought up Staff Sergeant Linder was not to necessarily get into that story, because I wanted to explain the relationship between you two, but we're getting ready to get into where you kind of change your thinking in life about who's right, who's wrong. And I want to get into that, but first we got to explain this.
Yeah. So, we were in Abu Ghraib. We have been patrolling this area west of, Baghdad and Abu Ghraib for maybe a couple weeks, but it's all by the old milk factory. If you talk to anybody that's been in Iraq and Abu Ghraib, they know about the milk factory. That place was hell, so we're just out that day. And I remember we stopped at a forward operating base where one of our platoon was, and we were just chatting with these guys, dropping them off some gear, some equipment, and some water and some bullets, and I was just sitting there talking to my buddies. It was just something weird that day. And we had been out in the same sector, riding the same route, and never really changed anything up. So we go to the side of the road off of Route Huskies, and we're sitting up in front of this house. So what we would used to do to cover more area, we would park 2 Humvees at one spot. We parked ours in front of this Iraqi guy's house. Then we would send to our other 2 Humvees down the road, maybe half a click, maybe a click, to cover that intersection to where insurgents could not get in between those vehicles and plant a bomb, So we would cover those areas, So we had been to the same spot like 3 days in a row. And the first 2 times we were there, this nice Iraqi guy with his family and his daughters would come out, they offer us chai tea, and me still sinister, like, man, this dude about to poison us and try to kill us, y'all. I ain't drinking that shit.
He probably knew the guy that cleaned the toilets.
It's Fockley's cousin, man. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, they were there laughing and joking, then all of a sudden we go back night 3, like the house is dark, like there's nobody there, and I'm just like, where'd they go all of a sudden? Like, man, were they going on vacation to Fallujah or something? Like, where they at? They're gone. And I'm just like, something's not right, and we're sitting there and the sun's starting to go down, and where we're at, we're like across the street from a slum, man, a ghetto, and just behind us is this house and just desert and palm trees, and I'm just like, something's not right, man. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, LT, I got a bad feeling about this, man. And, he tells me, like, Pitts, you've been in the turret all day, brother. Like, listen, you need to chill out and relax. I think you need to get some rest. And I was like, I hear you, sir, but I just can't shake this feeling, man. I feel like somebody's watching us. He's like, man, just get some rest. So, I hop out of the turret. And before I go to the driver's seat, I'm like, man, I'm going to go take a piss real quick, because I've been up here all day. So I'm taking a piss, and I'm seeing these cars pass me, and I just get this bone chilling feeling, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And I know 100% for sure and for certain, my sixth sense was like, yo, dude, there's somebody out here watching us right now. I can't explain it. I don't know what it was, but I could feel their eyes watching me. And so I go back, to the Humvee, and, I got my hand on my rifle and my fingers on the selector switch, because I'm just like, man, it's about to go down. And I talked to my buddies, they're outside on the side of the Humvee, on the driver's side of the Humvee, smoking and joking, pints lighting a cigarette, and we're just like all chatting. I'm like, man, I got a bad feeling, man. Do y'all feel this like vibe that's going on now? Like something's not right. And one of them was like, it is kind of weird today. Like, homeboy's not here with his family. He's just gone, So, it's just like, man, what do we do? Our orders are to sit here. So, all right, man. Pint goes and climbs in the turret. Then I go and sit in the driver's seat. My lieutenant is sitting in the passenger seat in the TC spot. And he's messing with the radio, the Blue Force tracker, and trying to do whatever he's doing. And I could tell he's frustrated. And I'm like, sir, I gotta say it again, man. Like, I just don't feel right about being here. And that's when he just kind of he was like, damn it, Pitts, like, we're fine. I told you we're good. We checked the area before we came here, and we did. Before we parked in anywhere, we would always get a squad out, and they would clear that area to make sure nobody had buried anything. We would make sure there were no tracks. I mean, we did everything right, man. So he tried to put this confidence in me, but I just had no confidence that night in being there. Like, something was not right. And so the next thing you know, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to lay my head back and I'm going to take a nap. My homeboy's up in the turret. I'm going to get some rest. And I remember taking my helmet off and laying my head back. And it's kind of weird how it happened. So I kind of almost remember it in 2 parts, but I only told the first part in the book because I didn't know how to merge both of those together. So how I initially remember it was waking up inside the Humvee, and it was weird. It was like an outer body experience. I was floating above my body inside the Humvee, and I was just looking down at myself in the seat. And I just remember yelling to myself, Dex, wake up, man. You're going to move. You're going to die. You got to get up. You got to move. And it was just like, I don't know where I was, but it was so serene. It was peaceful and it was quiet. It was just, and then all of a sudden it was just like snap, and I was back in my body. And I remember like turning my head side to side and moaning and groaning. And then I just hear somebody yelling, Pitts, Pitts, Pitts. And I'm just like, man, who in the hell is yelling at me? Like, what is going on? It's ringing in my ears. And why am I hurting so bad? And I remember I tried to move and it was like my body was way down and I just couldn't move. And then I just remember seeing like light and specks of dirt in the Humvee and like particles of dirt, yo. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on? And then I just look over and I see my lieutenant's face. And then it's like everything comes to, because everything had been moving like a Hollywood movie, slow motion, and then next thing you know, I just remember like, oh my God, this hurts so bad. And I don't know what the heck is going on. And I just remember my lieutenant's like, I'm gonna get you out of here, man. I'm gonna get you out of here. And so he just grabs me by my shoulders and my door is completely wrecked. We had parked on top of two 155 shells. They were literally sitting up under my ass. And literally where we were standing talking moments before the bomb went off, we were standing directly on top of this giant bomb. And to this day, I don't know what homeboy was doing. Like maybe he was asleep on his watch. Maybe he was waiting for a different moment. Hey, I don't know. Maybe they got to their spot late, but they could have killed all of us in an instant. We would have never known. It just all of a sudden, I'm just sitting here and my lieutenant pulls me out, man, through the passenger side. And I remember my body hit the ground with a thud. And I'm just like, oh my God, it hurts so bad. And the one thing I remember was how cold the ground was. And that's like the ground was just like zapping all the heat from my body. My body's in absolute pain, the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, man. Just I'm looking at the stars. I don't know what's happened to me, but I just know I'm about to die. This is it. I'm 19 years old. I'm in Iraq. I'm about to take my last breaths on earth, man. And in my mind, I start thinking this, not like this, man. I'm supposed to be a hero. I'm supposed to live this wonderful life and do all these wonderful things. And I'm getting ready to be with all the guys that I just lost. And I didn't even get to fight back, And so I'm just sitting there waiting for death to come. And I tell people it's so weird. Like I was terrified to die, but I was also ready to die because I wanted the pain to stop because the pain was so bad. I just want the pain to go away at that point. And I was just like, man, just take me, but man, my buddy started working on me and come to realize, my left arm had been completely demolished and shattered. My left arm is completely jacked, man. And I just remember the taste in my mouth of blood and dirt mixed together, just my teeth were jagged and sharp because half of my molars had gotten blown out, and just the ringing in my head. I mean, and I remember my buddies, like they started putting the splint on me, my doc, and I'm just like screaming to the top of my lungs, just like, oh my God, this pain, somebody make it stop. So they just started bandaging me up. And I'm a big boy at this point, So they were like, dude, we need your help, Pitts. We need you to get up off the ground. We need you to dig down deep and help us. And I just remember hearing them say, we need you, that we need you. And I just always told myself I would never fail these dudes again. And I dug down with everything in me as they grabbed me by my good arm and they lifted me off that ground. And that's when I decided I'm going to live and I'm going to fight back. And I remember they picked me up and I screamed out horribly as they picked me up. But my training came back, and I was like, hey, where's my freaking rifle, man? Somebody give me my damn rifle right now. Because that is one thing you learn in boot camp is you don't go anywhere without your rifle. Your rifle is an extension of you. You are worthless as a soldier without your rifle, especially as a grunt. Your rifle's everything. And I didn't know where my rifle was, So I'm like, man, give me my rifle. And then I remember somebody saying, man, somebody's already secured it. And I heard that, but I was like, I still want my rifle because I'm ready to start shooting if need be, But so they get me in the Humvee and then they transport me to the cache. I think it was the 91st cache in Biop at the time. And I still don't know to this day who was driving the Humvee. But that bastard, I swear, hit every damn hole and pothole on that road back to the hospital, man. I mean, I'm sitting in there dying, just crying and just saying the Lord's Prayer over and over again, like, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. And just hit a bump, just, man, we finally get to the cache. And I mean, it was so weird, because we had just been there like Thanksgiving Day. We got blown up real bad on Thanksgiving Day. We took our boys to that same cache, man. And I didn't know that, a couple weeks later, I'd be right there on that gurney getting rolled in, and I remember they gave me my first ever hit of morphine. My God, bro, I have never felt anything so wonderful in my life, man. Never felt
In
anything.
no way is he condoning the use of morphine.
I am not condoning. No, not at all. No narcotics, people. But my God, man, it was just, man, and that's when I realized, I was gonna live. I will not be okay, but I was gonna survive. But that's when I also knew I had a long road ahead of me, brother.
I think there's one question that you screamed out that you left out of that entire story, and I was hoping you would get to it, but you were checking for certain body parts if they were still there.
Oh yeah, everybody I know that's gotten hurt. The first concern was, well, death, like, dying, no, hey, dying, that's cool. But man, ain't no way I'm living without my nuts and my ball, and my Johnson, bro. Ain't no way, So I just remember, like, LT, please tell me my dick's still there. Please tell me my dick's still there. And I just remember he reached down and grabbed a handful, man. Was like, you're good. And I was like, all right, I can deal with whatever comes after this, man. It's so weird. Everybody I know and talk to, everybody says that's their first concern. Everybody.
After all this happens, and I want to point out, you talked about the medic that saved you, and I just want people to kind of keep that in the back of their head. The medic that worked on you, and the guys that got you to the hospital. When it's all said and done, you're on your way to Germany. You decide you're going to call Staff Sergeant Linder because he was on R&R, right?
Yep.
You're going to just tell him what happened. Why you got that idea, I still can't comprehend in my mind why you would, not to just let it, disseminate down. But you call him and something happens over the phone.
Yeah, so I think we were in Balad, and I'm just going through my little phone book, like calling my parents and friends I know, like, just so you know, I got blown up. I'm on my way to Germany, and I'm like, man, I know we got animosity, and I know that he and I don't get along, but I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm sure deep down this man cares about me and doesn't want me to die. I know we got issues, but I know we ain't that bad. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna call him and tell him. So I pick up the phone, I call him, and he's like, hello. I'm just like, Sarge, it's Pitts. Just want to let you know I just got blown up by an ID. I'm hurt pretty bad, but I'm gonna survive. I'm on my way to Germany. And he's yeah, okay. Click. Yeah. Yeah. And just when that happened, I was like, this son of a bitch don't care if I live or die. He does not care. And man, that haunted me for years, years, and that was one of those places in my life and times where I was like, man, I hope this son of a bitch dies over here. Like, is that revenge? Like, you don't care about me, well, I don't care about you. You know what? I hope you meet your end over here too then. It's just so mad, just so hurt, that somebody could not care for me that much. Like, my life is in your hands, like, you're supposed to be my leader. You're supposed to be the guy trying to make sure I get back home to my family, but, and then I tell you that I got hurt and your response is, yeah, okay. And you hang up the phone on me. Like, man, nothing like, hey, I'm sorry that happened to you. Well, you're going to be all right. No, we'll check on you. It's something, but I got nothing.
What else did you think was the reason why he didn't care? And I ask that because we're going to bring it back up in a little bit.
Well, in that time and moment, I just thought it was because he did not like me as a person. We just didn't get along, But after I got out of the military, I started doing got into acting. I was in an HBO documentary and with James Gandolfini from The Sopranos, And so from that, I remember Tony Soprano was like, hey, man, how about, you look into acting and I'm going to hook you up with some people. So I'm sitting at home and I get this call from Spike Lee. He's like, hey, I want you to come to Italy with me to shoot this World War II Buffalo Soldiers movie about the Black Buffalo Soldiers unit in World War II. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so while I'm over there, if people don't know who Spike Lee is, man, phenomenal director, has made a lot of movies, but when it comes to politics and being black, Spike Lee is the blackest of the black. When I say black, not skin color, I mean my man is down with the struggle, black power fist. If you ain't black, if it ain't black, it ain't right, and it's a very, very extreme point of view, but so for me, growing up, like I said, we never talked about color in my house. We never talked about black and white. It was just God, right and wrong. good character, good people. That's it. We never
Well,
discuss politics.
I have to cut you off because I want to bring this up because they kind of go together. I want to read something out of the book, okay?
Yeah.
You say, I know many will read this and stand in judgment of my mother and criticize her for the things she said to me and some of the things she did in reference to my skin. I understand how someone on the outside looking in can assume the worst about her after reading such things. But you all did not know Idella Pitts as I did. She did not do or say those things to hurt me or make me feel ashamed. She said and did those things to me out of her undying love for me and her desire to protect me so that I did not have to endure the pains that having dark skin in this life can bring. She was all too familiar with the pain and did not want me to become accustomed to it. Now, I think people need to understand that that's not just a statement out of here. Your mom took some extreme measures with you, especially about skin tone growing up, that I think people need to understand to put this in context with this story you're about to tell with Spike Lee.
Yeah. And I mean, man, we can even start with the kids on the bus. So black people making fun of other black people for being dark skinned. A lot of people don't realize where that comes from. That comes from slavery. So I tell people, yes, slavery's gone, slavery's over, but the remnants of it are still here, especially within the black community. So where the slave master, I mean, if you take a slave plantation, you got the slave master, his wife and his kids, and a couple workers, maybe like 15, 20 people on a plantation, but you got 100 slaves. You're outnumbered. You can't afford to let those slaves realize, we all black. There's more of us than them. We're going to get together. We're going to take over. So the slave masters knew that in order to keep that from happening, they had to divide the slaves somehow. And so what they would do is divide slaves, light skin versus dark skin. It's all part of the Willie Lynch letter. If anybody knows about the Willie Lynch letter, it talks about that. You had to separate your slaves. You can't let them unite. So the whole light skin versus dark skin thing, which a lot of people are not aware of, that happens within the black community. Nobody ever talks about it. We only talk about racism when it comes to white versus black, but never like black versus light skinned black, And so me being picked on the bus by those kids for being dark skinned, that is all descendant of slavery, to where light skinned people think they were better than dark skinned people. Then, you get the whole, well, he's cute, but he's cute for a dark skinned guy, or somebody tell me she's cute for a dark skinned girl. It's just, that's all from slavery, man. And so my mom, growing up in Mississippi, had dark skin. She learned how to bleach her skin over the years. And I was intrigued by my mom's photos, because my mom, when I knew her from my first memories, she was always of lighter skin. But I look at her pictures, I'm like, she was dark skinned back in the day. Like, how did she do that? And my mom, I guess when I started getting picked on the bus by those kids, her trauma, we passed down trauma from ourselves to our children, and she passed her trauma down to me by telling me, like, hey, if you bleach your skin and get lighter, your life's going to be a little better. My mom would tell me, don't wear black. You're dark enough. You don't need to be darker. Wearing black's going to make your skin darker. And that's because my mom was trained and conditioned growing up as a dark skinned girl in Mississippi to hate herself for having dark skin, because the light skinned girls were always treated better in the family. Light skinned people were always treated better and looked upon better. So my mom started teaching me those things, but unconsciously. And me, I didn't realize that was my mom's trauma teaching me that. I just thought that was my mother just trying to love me and trying to help me have a better life. So for me, I didn't realize the trauma that slavery still has on people. People might not want to talk about it. Republicans, conservatives, like, I'm a conservative guy, but a lot of people don't want to hear this. I'm like, dude, there are still issues that linger today from it. So for me, man, growing up in my household, it was never talked about. It was never all black, this and that. It was just good people, bad people for the most part, but man, when I got to Italy and I was around Spike Lee and his crew, and I was around not just black people, but black excellence. And when you get out of the military and you are lost, one of Maslow's hierarchies of needs is the need to belong, man. We all need a tribe. We all need people. We need somebody. We were not created to be alone in this life at all. man, that's what when people go to jail and prison, they punish them, they separate them from everybody, they put them in solitary confinement. It is torture. And me, I was alone. So when I got with Spike Lee and those guys, I was in search of a new tribe after the military, and I found it with these guys in black extremism and black excellence. And that's when I started my journey to the extreme left of where, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. These crackers is out here, it's the white man. Everything's the white man. Nothing's my fault, man. And I remember telling these guys about how the black kids on the bus would make fun of me. And they told me, brother, you have the skin color of kings from Africa. The reason they're making fun of you is because of slavery. And this is not on you. This is the evil white man's legacy and heritage that they have left you with, and I became intoxicated off of this black separatist, black power thing, man. And it was so powerful and it was so intoxicating, man. I mean, it felt so good to have my own tribe, yo. And I mean, when I say I went all in, I went all in. I did black studies. I mean, I studied black everything, just because it was my first time in my life. I was proud of something. I was proud to be black. I wasn't just black. I was proud to be black, man. And for me, it all started to make sense. The things in my life that I never had an answer for, I started getting answers for. The answer was slavery, racism, white people, white supremacy. And I started thinking back to my interactions in the Army with Staff Sergeant Linder, and it all made sense in that moment. I was like, he hates me because I'm black. I'm a threat to him. My blackness scares him, and it's his white supremacy mindset. It's the white man trying to keep a black man down, So in my mind, that was why that man hated me. I had no proof that man was racist. No proof at all. But in my mind, I told myself that's what it was because I needed an answer. And that's an easy answer to go to, unfortunately, for a lot of people, especially today. Man, if you're a black and you want to be a victim, you can play that victim card all day because, man, I'm the type of person that believes you find whatever it is in life that you're looking for. And if you are looking for a reason to hate, you will find every reason. Me, I was looking for a reason to blame someone except myself. And I use my skin color as that bar to where if I failed or if I did something wrong, it wasn't me. It was white people. It was racism. It was white supremacy. And I bought into all of it.
How do you go from the way your mom raised you and the way, I mean, we can include your dad into that, but how you were raised to that? I understand it's intoxicating, but it's a completely different mindset. How does it overtake you? And I want people to understand that because how it completely, according to the book, it overtook your life. You say that you were Afrocentric and Afrocentric and everything was completely turned on its head with you.
Yeah. It just, the power of loneliness is strong. I don't think we realize how strong loneliness is, and and what's the word I'm looking for? Just insecurity, man. I wasn't secure in myself, and and like I said, with love in my life and girls, I told you earlier where I was afraid of being alone, and I would attach to anybody that would take me at that time. I did, and that's who I was as a person, just very insecure, and I had no army buddies around, So the first group of people I came in contact with, it was the Spike Lee's camp, and I dove in head first and I attached myself because, these people brought me in. They reaffirmed everything and nothing was my fault. Man, black is beautiful, brother. And they just took me in like family, man. And it's so weird when I think about it because that's not how I was raised. It's not how I was raised. My family, my mom and dad were still married, but I was still a young man trying to find my way in life, and I'm just like, man, who am I? I know who my parents think I am.
I say that because I'm trying to find out, like, how does your mom feel about that? You've got to have discussions with her.
I never really talked to my mom in depth about it, And the thing is, man, most of my family on my mom's side, they all probably would have felt a lot of the same way. I mean, I talked to my auntie a couple weeks ago, she was talking about, I forgot what we were talking about, something about police. Well, yeah, you know how these white people out here, baby, just real casual. But she's a black woman that was born in Mississippi in the 40s. She's gonna have these extreme views, and guess what? When you have those views, guess what? You pass them on to your kids. You pass that trauma down, So how I was, like I didn't discuss it much with my family, but I found myself more so agreeing with some of the stuff my aunties would say. And my mom never really got much into the conversation, but she would say stuff now and then. And I'll be like, yeah, now I kind of understand that, So I mean, like we never got into a deep discussion about it, but I did with my father, and I said, we never discussed politics, and I remember I was in, I think, African American history too. Man, we were diving into W.E.B. Du Bois, and just, man, we were going in, and I'm just learning all this. I'm just talking to my father. Here I am, almost died for America, and I'm over here out in the yard working with my dad. I'm just talking like, man, do you believe the thing that this country has did to our people? Like how evil this country is, Dad. Like just the oppression and just heaping all this crap upon the black community, man. And I remember my dad looked up at me like, what the hell do you know about any of this? Oppression, racism, slavery. I'm like, Dad, it's in the books. What do you know about this? And it's a black man from Mississippi. And I didn't know, but my dad was very, very conservative, extremely Republican. Never talked about it, but man, we just started getting into the conversation and debate. I remember I used to sit online and argue with people. I remember I had this one line I would always drop on people when they talk about the forefathers. I'd be like, that's your forefathers. Yeah, your forefathers were hanging my forefathers from trees in this country. So I don't want to hear a damn thing you got to say about America. And this is coming from a guy that almost died for America. It's so bizarre, but man, that is how easy it is to get taken and have your mind transformed, man, especially at a young age when you don't know who you are, you don't have a purpose in your life. Man, you have to guard your life because people can come into your life and mold you exactly into who they want you to be. And you won't even know it. I didn't even know it. Had not a clue that it was happening because I was just happy to have a tribe that I was a part of that was famous, and just, yeah, man, I'm part of 40 Acres and a Mule. I always heard that growing up, but I never knew about what actually 40 Acres and a Mule was. I mean, when I started when I started acting and did the thing with Spike Lee, I always saw 40 Acres and a Mule and I didn't realize what it was. And then I started going to school like, oh, that's what that is. I just dove headfirst into it, man. It was, it's just hard for me to think of myself like that now because of how I'm now. And I'm just like, damn, man, I was still stupid at like 22, 23, 24, 25.
So when you talk about that and you get so deep into it, one, do you regret it now? Do you regret it?
No, because the experience, because the way America is now, I have this belief that it is hard to argue with somebody and hard to debate somebody if they know what they're talking about. And so I feel like the best way to argue or debate somebody is if I can argue your point for you, I know what you're going to say. I know all the tips. I know all the tricks. I already know. That's why with all the stuff going on in America and, the America's races and, evil. And I'm just like, bro, I've already been down this road. I know everything you're going to tell me because I've had all these thoughts. I've read all the books. I know about it all. So I'm glad I went through it and had the experience because I can see the bullshit coming before it gets to me. And I know what the goal is. The goal is to get an emotional response out of me. The goal is to get me thinking like, man, maybe this country really is just a wholly racist country. But that's not the case because that was not the life I lived. I lived a good life, man. I've never seen the KKK burn a cross in my yard. My family members have, my ancestors, but not me. Man, I've been called Uncle Tom, a sellout, a coon ass nigga, more times than I've been called a nigger by some random white dude. Is there racism in America? Of course. There's always going to be the case, but that is not the majority. That is not the norm. And you know what? That has not been my experience. But at the same time, just because that has not been my experience does not mean that that has been some other black guy's experience in America that lives somewhere else, So just because it hasn't happened to me doesn't mean that it's not happening to him. And my view of the world is not the only view of the world, just like his view of the world is not the only view either, And it's just one of those things, where we all have our view and we all want our view to be reinforced. And that's why I say you can find whatever you're looking for. Man, when I was in that time, bro, I could find anything to confirm my bias towards America, racism, and slavery. Just get online and like, how evil is America? Man, you can find article after article after article, pure articles from doctors about racism, But if you go the opposite direction, why is America great? Man, you can find every article you want to support your argument. It's just a matter of what are you looking for.
So then how, because you're talking straight and you're talking how things could come, but it's not that easy. So how do we get to that point to show people? Because the way I look at it, this, and with the riots and everything that happened, this is tearing the country apart from the inside. Absolutely. More than it ever has before. So how do we get to that point to where we show that we've swung pretty far on the pendulum and we need to bring it back and get a little centered?
No, but there's one thing I tell a lot of new cats that come into police work. Like, man, I don't tell new guys anything that are doing things wrong. I tell them, dude, I don't have to tell you because this job is going to teach you. I came into police work with a one-track mind, like thinking this was going to be it. And this is how I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to do it, But police work completely showed me a completely different side of life that I never knew existed. And it just completely changed my perception, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, we have white people in the world, in America, and black people. All right, white people know slavery's bad. White people are evil. I get to the hood. Like I said, I'm not from the hood. So I always find it funny, me as a young black rookie officer in the hood, I come up to some young thug. Hey, what's up, my nigga? Hey, officer, you know how it is in the hood, bro? And I'm like, no, sir, I don't. I am not from here. I'm from the country in Mississippi in the military. Hey, but I hear all this talk about evil racist people, but every scene I'm making in the hood is a young black man that has shot and killed another young black man. And I'm just like, that's not good. I'm like, hey, anybody see anything? It's broad daylight. There's cameras everywhere. And somebody just shot this dude in the head 20 times, and there's a block party going on. There's TV cameras. And I'm like, hey, anybody see anything? Nope. We ain't see nothing, man. We ain't see nothing. And then next thing you know, the crowd turns on you, and you're just like, hey, we're here to help. And they're like, man, fuck you. Fuck the police. Y'all killed that nigga. Y'all just glad that another nigga's dead. And I'm just like, that's not what we're here for, And man, I slowly started to wake up to reality because of police work. Because, we deal with people on their worst days, on the worst day of their lives. And man, I've seen so many young dead black men in the street. And I ain't never seen one KKK hood or one burning cross in the hood hanging black people or killing black people. It has been by people in their neighborhood that look like them. Every time. And so I started questioning a whole lot of stuff, and I said, I was always very educated I educated myself because I don't believe that, you just listen to people and do what they tell you. That's how you have things like, the Jonestown massacre happens. The pastor tells you, hey, give me all your money. Give me your wives. We're all moving to, South America. Why? Because God told me.
Drink this Kool-Aid.
Yeah, drink this Kool-Aid. Why? Because God said so. Okay, pastor. I've never been that guy. So I've always been the type to, you tell me something, I'm going to go verify it. And I remember I just started looking more so into politics, and and I just discovered like how the Democratic Party was the party actually of slavery and the KKK. And I just like, what? And I just went down this rabbit hole, and I just kept researching and researching and researching. Like Frederick Douglass was a Republican. Like what? Like what? Because all my life, it's just been told, Democrats, black, Democrats, they'll say black people, and just, that's not the case. That is not the case, and just this self-awakening, man. For me, it really came when I realized when I was in that parking lot, with that gun in my lap, and I was going to kill myself. And then I realized, I wanted to die, but I didn't have the courage to do it myself. But it was my white sergeant and my white major. And then I started thinking back to when I was laying on the ground in Iraq about to die on January 2nd, 2005. It was my white medic, my white buddies, who at that time I never saw them as white. I never saw these guys as white. They were just my boys. They were my homies. They were there to make sure I got home alive, yo. And I just remember all this hate and bitterness that I had learned from, these people, and I'm just like, these people love me, man, and they don't care that I'm black, yo. So why am I picking up all these burdens and carrying all this hate for people that never done anything to me, but have done everything for me, and I just started looking at myself like I'm a sellout, dude. Like, what a horrible person I am, that I would cast, this blanket on all these people, these white people that done great stuff for me, and then I just remember, man, going into the police academy. I remember we were walking up the first day and some random old black dude just comes out smoking a cigarette, and he's like, "You do realize, young man, that you're about to be working for a racist terrorist organization and terrorize your own people," and I'm just like, man, I'm on your side, homie. Black, power to the people, and it just, the way my police department came to me in the worst time of my life. I lost my mother, suicide. I had 80 accidental discharge on my shotgun. I was going through my second divorce. My wife was cheating on me. I was ready to kill myself, and I had nothing. And I really thought I was going to lose my job. I was still on probation when that happened with my shotgun. They had no reason to keep me. They had every reason to fire me. But my white major, Chris Defect, man, pulled me into that office and said, "Dexter, we love you. We know you're a great man. You're a great officer. We just want you to get better. And tell us what we need to do to help you." And I didn't know how to answer that. I didn't know what I needed. But man, they tore down this fake, false, imaginary hate in life that I had in my head. They completely tore it down. And it should have never been built because I said that was never my experience. But man, that's what we do as people, man, especially in the social media age, brother. We get online and we read these memes and we read these short videos, watch these short videos, and we take other people's lived experience and we stack it on ourselves and we carry that with us, even though that's not been our lived experience. Nobody in America today can say they know what it's like to be a slave. Nobody, no, there's some people alive that can tell you about what it was like during the civil rights era, but most people today, we are so far removed from that. That's not been our experience, man. Like I said, I live in a nice neighborhood in a nice house. I'm surrounded by mostly white people. You know what? Ain't nobody in this neighborhood ever come out and say, "You can't move over here, nigga. It's time to get out and move." Nobody's ever said that. Man, my neighbors watch my kids, and it's just like, man, why do we build these false imaginary worlds of hate? We just learn to hate. And man, I had learned to hate, even though I was never taught to hate. And I don't know, it's so hard for me to explain how I got caught up in that mess, man, just because, one, it's not of God, and it kills me when I see Christian people, Christians that say, "I'm Christian, but I'm pro-black." I'm like, bro, you are a man of God. God says, "Go and be fisher of men," not a fisher of black men. We need to drop the color from that, black Christian or whatever, bro. It's like, no, just go out and serve people. Go out and save lives and save souls, man. Who are you to say one group deserves to be saved better more than the other group? That's not how this thing works. But for some odd reason, we are so attracted to color and everything in this country. And man, it's just so bizarre. And like I say, I can say that because I was caught up in that world. I mean, where I use my skin color as a weapon, man. Skin color as a shield to protect me from my own bullshit. But because I did not want to look at myself in the mirror beyond my skin and look at my own character and my own flaws. So in order to protect myself from doing that, I just use my skin color as a shield and say it's because I'm black. But when you take away the skin color and all you're left with is character, who are you and what are you? And I did not like who I was or what I was below my skin, because like I said, I didn't know who I was. I know who I was supposed to be. I know who people told me what I was supposed to be, but I didn't know who Dexter Pitts was. So that's when I wrote my book, everybody's like, "Why did you name it I Am Pitts?" Named it I Am Pitts because I finally know who I am, because I have spent most of my life trying to be a chameleon, trying to fit into groups, just trying to fit in and be accepted. And I would do or say whatever it took to fit in and be a part of the group. And now at this point in my life, I don't care about being a part of the group. Everybody asks me, bro, how is it that you're an active police officer and you are so vocal about this stuff and you're not scared? Because I am not afraid to be my own person. I'm not afraid to be who God has designed me to be. I know who I am. And if who I am offends anybody, if who I am offends my chain of command and my police chief, I don't care. That's on you to handle, not me. Say, judge me if I am bringing discredit to this department or if I am doing anything to bring shame to this profession. But Pitts means something to people now. Pitts means something to me. Pitts means something to my kids. P, personal responsibility. I, integrity. T, truthfulness. T, man, tenacity. S, and that's the most important one, selflessness, serving other people. And I spent most of my life trying to serve myself, trying to fit in with every group I can because, it was about me. It was all about me, just wanting to fit in and be cool with everybody. And you know what, man, when you get to that lowest point in your life, brother, where I was in that car and it's just you in your own rawness, man, it's just you and nobody else. And you have to look at yourself and there's nobody there to blame. You see who you are you see who you really are. And it's hard to stomach, man. And I couldn't stomach who I was. And that's why I was just ready to die because I knew I was at a point where I could no longer put everything off of my skin color. And I had to take responsibility for the life that I had lived and the choices and the decisions I had made. And I hadn't made bad decisions in life, but I made enough of them that led me to live this fake life, man. And you can only live a double life for so long before it catches up with you. Just like my mother. My mother lived 2 separate lives. I never knew that she was a battered spouse, a battered wife. But when you would see her in public, how you doing? Oh, blessed and highly favored, baby. How you doing? Just, oh, God, just blessed, just love the Lord, but deep down, she had all these demons and was battling all this. And I never knew. And so for me, with my kids, I'm not going to let what happened to my mother happen to me. And I'm not going to let that affect and impact my children. Because they deserve a better life than that. And they deserve to know that, you know what? You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. But guess what? You are somebody. Your last name means something. So you don't have to try to blend in with everybody because you don't need to blend in with everybody because God made you unique. You are not a photocopy of somebody else. You might have a lot of, similarities between your father, but you're your own person at the end of the day. And I want my kids to be their own person. And it's hard to do because, man, the pressure from social media and my God, man, my kids are going to deal with a whole lot more than I ever have to deal with, but it's just like, man, how do I instill these good qualities and these, and all these principles in my kids now to make them to where they're Teflon so they don't have to live the fake life that I lived for most of my life.
So how do you do it?
Lead by example, man. Lead by example. Like I said, my parents I had a good upbringing despite how my mother's life ended and my parents' marriage ended. I had a good upbringing. And I've never been to jail. I've never been, never. I've been put in handcuffs, but that's because I ain't gonna lie, man. I got misconstrued as the wrong person. They said it was a big black dude, and I was walking down the street, and I got detained.
I was like, told on you,
Ron and Terrell. It was Dexter Pitts. But yeah, just man, I do everything by example, man. Everything's about example. Monkey see, monkey do, And so for me, like, I just try to be as honest and genuine as possible.
There's something though that sticks with me about this. You built that Pitts principle, the thing that you explained about. When you got back from your R&R, from everything that happened with your mom, that happened with you, you've got this will to live and this desire and this drive now. First call out of the chute, suicide.
Oh, man, yeah.
The reason I bring that up is because you work so hard to get to where you were going to go, to get through that. You see this automatically, and it doesn't. I don't think it puts you back in a tailspin, but you definitely, someone there knew, hey, you got to get out of here. We got to work at this from a different angle. when you see that, you know that you'll never escape that in the job you're in. You're going to see it over and over and over again. You're going to see the hate that you're talking about. You're going to see the suicides, the death, everything that we've talked about the whole night. How do you continue turning that page, making that second chapter, and showing that you're bigger than all of that?
I heard a saying the other day that says, the more you do the right thing, the easier it becomes to do. And that's how I've continued to turn that page. I don't make any room for excuses in my life as much as possible. I mean, as a human, we all make excuses, but I literally, when something goes wrong and something messes up in my life, the first thing I do is ask, what did you do to cause this to happen? The first thing I used to do is like, well, it's because I'm black. Now it's more so of like, no, it's not because I'm black. It's like, what did Dexter Pitts do? I'm the fall man for my life. Every decision I make has a consequence, and I realize that. And so for me, I realize that, man, I'm going to have to make certain steps to win back people's trust in my work. Because as a police officer, if you can't work with people that you trust, bro, you can't work, period. I mean, these guys are going to be there in your worst moment. If bullets start flying, you got to believe that person's going to be there, And I had lost my reputation as a police officer because I was reckless, because I was selfish, Like I said, I was working, trying to get killed and die. And people took notice, like, yo, this motherfucker is crazy. Like, what is wrong with this dude, And so I had to work overtime. And your reputation on the police department is everything. So I had to learn to put myself in a position to where I put others before me and humble myself. If my partner's already done like 2 reports, I'm going to do 4 because I feel like I owe that to him, because I have to show him, dude, I'm here to work with you, not work against you. I would be the first 2 calls, and I would be the last on the call to leave. If there's somebody at a crime scene standing there, I go take the crime scene log, because that's the last job anybody wanted to do. Instead of just standing around smoking and joking, I try to go and find work, and I try to prove to people that, dude, you know what? I'm changed. I'm different. I'm not that guy anymore. And I say it took me years of work to finally build myself a better reputation to where people are like, all right, this dude's all right, man. Because I was always told, that once you use your reputation, it never comes back. So it's kind of like the redemption question you asked me earlier. It's like, I don't believe that once you get a reputation, it's always there. I mean, it'll be remnants of it, but it doesn't always have to be you, and if you want that to be you, you got to realize you're going to have to work triple overtime, man. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to put in the work nobody else wants to do.
Looking back at your whole career, everything that we've talked about tonight, is there anything you wish you would have done differently?
There's 2 things I wish I would have done differently. The first thing I wish I would have done differently is join the Army and go on to Ranger School, because that was my sole purpose for joining the Army. I wanted to become a U.S. Army Ranger. The movie Black Hawk Down after 9/11 is what inspired me to join. And I was all in gung-ho on becoming an Army Ranger. But I decided that, you know what? I'm going to pass up this opportunity. I'm going to go home and get married, because we're going to be together forever. And I will go to Army Ranger School later. And later never came. So that's one of my biggest regrets in life. And something else I wish I would have done differently, honestly, in my police career. And I am now dealing with the effects of it now, but it's done more deeper investigations and jobs early in my police career as a patrol officer. So there's one thing I battle with still from my time in the military, and that's my lack of confidence in myself, and my belief in myself and my ability to do something and be things, because when you're in the, how it is when you're in the Army as a private man, you're a fucking idiot, you're stupid, you're worthless, and I was a sensitive person most of my life. And so when I got in the Army and started hearing that from people, from leaders, I started to believe that, that I was stupid and I was, I'm not going to accomplish anything. I'm dumb, So, man, I've carried that with me for years, even though I know I'm not stupid and I know I'm not dumb. But I avoid things sometimes in police work that are hard, like administrative stuff, because I've never believed that I was capable of it. So when it would come to doing going that extra mile to do the good investigation to where, hey, let's go get this warrant. Let's get this affidavit. Let's do this and serve it, I avoided that stuff, because I was scared, because I didn't think I was smart enough to do it. And because I didn't want to look stupid and messing up, making a mistake, because I didn't want to hear people's criticism of me. So now here I am, 10, 12 years later, when it's just like, man, I'm now in a position on my police department where I am the salty 10-year veteran, and people are looking at me, these new guys, to know how to do certain things. And there's certain things in my career, like, I should know how to do, but I don't do them often because, as a patrol officer, how often do you really get to do warrants, but I've always avoided that. And I've always avoided trying to be in a position of leadership, because I've always felt like I was not a leader and I'm not a good leader. I've always felt like that because, like, I carry that stuff from the military, but that's not true, and that's one of my biggest regrets, is that I never took more chances to lead, that I never took more chances to do deeper police work and investigations, because I never felt like I was smart enough to. And now I'm to the point where I'm confident I can do all these things, but it's still that hesitation in the back of my mind where it's like, we need an acting sergeant tonight. I'm just like, ooh, shh, nope, don't want it to be me. Don't, and so I'm at a point in my career where I'm battling back against that. And I feel like I'm a brand new rookie trying to learn things, because I put it off for so long because I was so terrified of messing up on what other people think. But so what I'm doing now is I've decided, for the first time in my career, I'm going to become a PTO, a police training officer, an FTO for all you old police officers out there. I don't know why they changed it, but it's time for me to start training people and giving back. And I had a young guy riding with me the other day for 2 days. I'm not a trained FTO. I'm not. But man, he was asking me questions, and I realized I had so many answers to so many of these questions he was asking and how he was looking at me. And I was just like, man, I can do this, man. Like, why can't I? Because like I said, I can hear Staff Sergeant Linder in the back of my head, and others, outranking soldiers just telling me I'm an idiot, and it's just like, I can still hear those voices, but, the older, confident me now, more confident as a police officer, and seeing that people are looking to me for leadership, it's just like, bro, it's time to step up to the plate, man. It's time to step up, because I've complained so long about the lack of quality of officers in this job and on my department. I'm just like, man, what have I done about it? I've always made my runs, done my little investigations, and I go the extra mile, but when it comes to paperwork or certain things, I'll stop, because I'll get scared, and I'm like, nah, I ain't doing that. I don't want to look stupid. I'm now at a point in my career where I don't care if I look stupid, because I want to learn. Because I want to learn, not for me, but to learn for the guys that are coming up below me, these 21-year-old guys that don't know much. I want to learn for them. So when I do eventually become a police sergeant, I will be able to lead these guys, not just lead them, but lead them with confidence and be a good leader. And be good enough of a leader to realize that, what? Hey, I might get this wrong and I might not know this, but guess what? We're going to go figure it out and find somebody that knows the right way.
That is a 180-degree change from earlier in your life. Let's talk about the podcast, where people can find the book, and where people can find you.
Yeah, man. So I started the I Am Pitts podcast back in, my God, I'm on episode 72. It was like, I think March of 2021, I believe. Yeah, March of 2021, I started the podcast. The reason I started it, man, was just seeing everything going on with the riots and protests. There are so many false narratives being put out, and so many officers being trashed every day. And we're just shuffling all this shit and just being crapped on every day. And it's like we didn't have a voice, and everybody was afraid to speak up and say anything. And I'm just like, how is it that we, as law enforcement officers in this country, can ensure that everybody's First Amendment rights are being upheld while they yell at us, scream at us, curse at us, shoot at us? But the moment we try to say anything, we're scared that we're going to get fired. I'm like, no, I might be a police officer, but I'm an American citizen first. And there's this little thing people might not realize called the 13th Amendment. Brothers is free now. We speaking. I'll tell people I am not afraid to speak out, and I started my podcast then because I felt like, man, officers needed a voice and people needed to hear what it's really like being a police officer in the city, when your city's being burned down in front of you, and what's going through your mind when you're on a protest line and people are telling you, we're going to rape and fuck your daughters and we're going to kill your families, not just one time, every day, every night. People don't realize what it was like for cops in 2020, man. People have not the slightest clue. So I started my podcast to reveal to people what it was really like during those times. I still remember the night of the Breonna Taylor verdict here in Louisville. Man, we got into a giant skirmish that day. I made it to Fox News, man. We had to put the hands on this dude, man. And, it was a wild day, yo. But I just remember the end of that day, getting off the bus. And the next thing you know, gunshots rang out, and just, two of our officers are down. And it makes nationwide news. And you know what we do the next day? Thank God my buddy survived, but we put on our uniforms and went back out there the next day. And we faced that storm of hate and all the yelling and cursing and threats. And we did it day after day after day after day. And man, police officers don't get enough credit in this world, man, for what we have done the last 2 years. When somebody has to be a voice for police officers, and somebody kind of has to lead the charge to where officers are not afraid to use their First Amendment rights to speak their mind and speak out when things aren't right. And, and a lot of guys are afraid of losing their jobs. And I understand that, but, I believe that God has given me this responsibility, because I'm in a special position to where, man, I am 100% retired from the Army and the VA. I don't police because I need the money. I police because I believe in the job, and I believe in this profession, man. And I believe in the Constitution, and I believe in protecting people. Because like I said earlier, I know what it's like to need protection, but not be able to stand up and protect yourself because you're scared. And I feel like I'm doing that with my podcast to the police profession, man, to where, man, somebody's got to stand up and not be afraid to say what is really going on, because everybody's afraid of the administration. But I am not afraid of my administration. I'm not afraid of my police chief. I'm not afraid of anybody. The only thing people can do to me in this life is kill me. And if that happens, guess what? I'm going to be with my mother. I'm going to be with God in heaven and all the people I lost over the years, man. I'm not afraid of idle threats. And like I say, I'm not doing my podcast to shame my police department. I'm not doing it to crap on people. Man, if anything, I am trying to bring light to the awesomeness of the men and women that I work with in the job we do every day. I want people to know what it's really like. I hope, that people listen and be like, man, I want to go work with this guy, or I want to be in this profession because this is still a great job. So I use my platform to to shine on this profession. And when there's something wrong and a cop's done something wrong, I'll call it out and I'll say it, man. I'll give my opinion on it. People might not like it. It might offend the thin blue line, but you know what? We don't always get it right, So, man, I'm very passionate about my podcast, and it's just my opinion. It's not sponsored by my police department. And, people have said, man, you better be careful. They're going to come after you. And I'm like, bro, come at me. I don't care. I am in my own time using my money on my free time. This ain't got nothing to do with y'all. If anything, y'all should be thankful that somebody's here that's speaking positive to y'all, because everybody I know and work with, like, man, fuck this place. And I'm trying to change that attitude. And I'm trying to draw people to this profession that will change this police department from a place to where people are like, I can't wait to get out of here, to where people are like, man, this is where I want to be and I don't want to go nowhere else. So I use my podcast for that, and I get into politics a little bit, and I give my opinion, but I am not a very political person, because I get tired of politics. But at the end of the day, I don't want to do the political thing. I want to do the right thing. So man, if you ever want to listen to the Iron Pitts podcast, I am on all major podcast platforms. So, go to Apple, Google, Spotify. I'm on all of those. So whatever you listen to your podcast on, I'm on there.
Let's talk about where people can find the book, because it is an amazing book.
I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. So if you go to iampitts.com, there's a link on there, and it'll take you to Amazon. You can buy a copy. Or if I tell people, man, if you would like a signed autographed copy from me, and everybody's like, man, why would I want a book from you? Who are you? I don't know. I just throw that out there. Man, you can just drop me an email at iampitts@yahoo.com, and I'll tell you how to order a signed copy from me. And a lot of people ask me, which is better? Like, man, dude, I tell people book money is not necessarily good money, and I'm not in this for the money. Because if I was in this for the money, trust me, I'm a fool. there is no money to be made. If anything, man, this is about, man, I want people to, realize that they're not alone in their struggles and in their battles. And more importantly, man, I want to shine light on veterans, those that have sacrificed for our country, and the police officers in this country that get up and go do this job every day, knowing that, every call you take could be your last call, man. And so, like I say, I love my profession. I love my brothers and sisters in blue. I love my veterans. Most importantly, man, I love America. That's why I got this American flag behind me. This country has been good to me and my family. This country has been good to all of us, but for some odd reason, we're losing light of that. We're digging up, the past demons and the past sins of America and bringing them to the forefront. Like, look at how horrible and evil this country is. And that is not the case. That's why I said in the book, man, we have to stop picking up these burdens from the past that none of us have ever carried and forcing these burdens on our children to carry, because that's not their burden to carry. It's so weird how we're fighting these battles that we fought already years ago. And for some odd reason, it's like we're resegregating ourselves now. And I hate that. And I just also want people to know, what, man, we don't have to be a country that's on this side or the left or the right side. That's not America, man. It is all about taking care of your fellow man and doing the right thing. You don't have to be a conservative to be a good person. You don't have to be a Democrat to be a good person. You could be a good person regardless of whatever political party or philosophy you follow. Because at the end of the day, when I was laying on that ground in Iraq, dying, I didn't give a damn what political party, what color that person was. I just whoever's here, help me. And it was the same thing when I was in Louisville during the riots and the protests. I did not care what the dude to the left or my right looked like. All I cared was, you got my back? All right, cool. I got yours, man. Let's make it home. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. So we got to learn at some point in time to put all this pettiness aside and just see each other as people. Yes, we have differences, but you know what? We have a lot more in common than we have that separates us. But like I said, it's all about, what are you looking for? I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for unity. I'm looking for peace and looking for love. But make no mistake, if you want to bring war and craziness to me, I'll bring it back to you.
Dexter, I'm so honored that you were on here. You have an amazing story. Guys, if you want to find some more of Dexter, once again, iampitts.com, the I Am Pitts podcast on all major podcasts. Go there to find his book. It'll take you to a link on Amazon, and you can get a hold of him at iampitts@yahoo.com in order to get an autographed copy. He doesn't know why people want to do that, but maybe you do. Get a hold of my man. Try and get you an autographed copy. If you want more of me, you can always find me on Instagram at the DTD_podcast. You can find me on Facebook at the DTD podcast. And you can find me on YouTube, where all these conversations are in video form, at the DTD podcast. But don't forget the one-stop shop, dtdpodcast.net. It's got the audio, the video, pictures of my man Dex. It's got where you can find his book, all of his links, everything you need to know about him and his story is right there. Once again, dtdpodcast.net. Also, don't forget to go to our sponsor at policecoffee.com. You know they're an officer-owned business. They're dedicated to crafting the finest coffees and blends, and they're shipped as soon as they're made to provide the freshest coffee available. Each batch is roasted fresh by people who know what it means to stay vigilant, and their specialty coffees do not waste one drop when flavor is concerned. Their coffee's some of the best you'll find. I talk about it every week, but the most important cause from it, they give back to our community. 50% of their profits go towards helping family members of police officers who fell in the line of duty. Guys, please go and check them out. They are an amazing sponsor. They do everything they can for the show, and they do for those brothers and sisters in blue. Remember, policecoffee.com, and when you put in your order, DJK10 for 10% off your order. Well, I think that's going to be it for the show tonight. Make sure you check out his book, I Am Pitts. Make sure you check out his podcast, and make sure you come back and check out all the stories here every week at the DTD podcast. That's going to be it for tonight. That's Dexter. I'm DJ. This has been the show. We're out of here, guys. See you later.